Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Sky Reacts with my very first reaction video. And today we are watching the rise of spiritual psychosis and metaphysical obsession. And then definitely go ahead and follow or subscribe, I should say, to the YouTuber Madison Brown. Show her some love. All right, let's get into it.
Channel. Today I have a guided message for you directly from the spirit guides. The guides are telling me that by the time you click off of this video, you will be subscribed and you won't skip any of the ads. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more guided messages
That was
from
clever.
me. And drop a like for divine protection. Namaste. So, if you are on TikTok, then you may have gotten some sort of guided message at some point in your time on that app. But before getting on with the rest of the video, I wanted to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Love Honey. Love
We
Honey is an
love a
award-winning
sponsorship,
adult toy and lingerie retailer whose
but
mission is to bring happiness.
we're here
New
for
Age
titties.
spirituality has been kind of a trending thing within popular culture for the last couple of years now, and it seems to be showing its ugly side now more than ever. And I've been seeing some people online who are being, I guess you could say, diagnosed. I use the word loosely. No one's actually diagnosing anybody for real out here, but
I
some
can't see it. Hold up. Wait a minute. Oh, about to say.
people are being diagnosed with something called spiritual psychosis. New Age spirituality has become quite mainstream in the past few years, especially among millennials and Gen Z. The younger generations have rejected traditional organized religion due to its perceived restrictions, judgmental.
And honestly, it's funny because for me personally, I started my spiritual journey back in 2018 when none of this stuff was popular. When people thought it was like still like weird and different and like, I don't know, I guess taboo. But then COVID hits. Everybody and their mama's a tarot reader. Everybody and their mama is on a spiritual journey and awakening. Granted, some of those people may very well be on their own journey and awakening. You can't take that from anybody. But some of these other people, it's giving performative. It's giving what spirits are you talking to? Are you sure they're good? Like, I don't know, but everyone's different. Everyone's different, but it did rise in popularity. And now, like, I feel like there's a mixture of people who are genuinely on their journey, and then it's being oversaturated with people who may not necessarily be genuine in whatever journey they're proclaiming to have gone under. But anyway, let's continue the video.
Nature and poor reputation when it comes to acceptance of others, bodily
Oh,
autonomy, especially for women, and
I've heard that a
reproductive
lot.
rights.
Now that's
The
messed up.
list goes on. Many people feel wronged by the religion they were brought up with. Now, I'm alluding mostly towards Christianity because that's
Hmm.
the religion I'm most familiar with growing up in the US.
Me too. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist.
But, young people have been a lot more open about their religious traumas and their departure from the church. All that
Mhm.
being said, humans are humans and we still seek spiritual guidance or, at the very least, purpose and meaning. Purpose and meaning is an integral part of the human experience, and it can be extremely daunting to go throughout life without it. Since the pandemic and the ongoing political unrest in the world and in the US, the loneliness crisis that we're experiencing right now, people now more than ever are desperate for salvation and answers as well as community. Many people, especially the younger generations, fear the unknown and the potentially dark future ahead of us. Many of
Mhm.
us are looking for reasons to keep going. We need faith, and so naturally we gravitate towards spirituality. And when organized religion isn't appealing, things like New Age spirituality and metaphysics seem very appealing. We've lost.
Well, she touched on a very important part. We're only 3 minutes in, but it's okay. She touched on a very important part. A lot of people do seek spirituality and religion to fill a void a lot of the times. And that could get tricky because honestly, and I had to learn myself, like none of us are perfect. All of us are trying to figure this thing out, you know? Once you start to develop a genuine connection with whatever way you decide to express your faith, whatever religion you might be, if you're spiritual, whatever deities you work with, pray to, what have you. Once you get grounded in that, it feels like less of a void that's being filled and more like, I don't know. It's like more of a, I wouldn't say like a missing part of you that came back, because that kind of sounds like the void, but like, I don't know. It feels more wholesome. Like it doesn't feel like you're grasping at straws for something. It just feels natural. It's more natural, I should say. And like you naturally start to become fulfilled. But I hope that made sense to y'all. I hope I explained it right. But anyway, let's get back to the video.
Lost faith in the system. We can't just go to college and leave debt free, buy a house, start a family like our parents, but maybe
Yeah.
we can manifest abundance. Maybe we can buy the right
Yeah.
money manifesting
Well,
crystals, and with the insights of a tarot card reader, we
that's what I was trying to say. Like people look at it as if it's like a instant fix, instant gratification, one size fits all thing. And it's not. This is something that takes time to ground yourself in. This is something that takes time to become rooted in and to even understand in general. Like, yeah, because a lot of those people who do stuff like that, they end up giving up on that thing that they were using to like fill their void. When in reality, once you embrace whatever it is you're embracing for your spiritual reasons, it doesn't feel like that. It's more natural, it's more organic instead of like trying to force something to fit. That's it. That's what I was trying to say. You don't have to force it. You shouldn't have to force it. Ebb and flows. Ebb and flows. But let her continue. Yeah.
can be led towards a rich husband who will take care of all of
Yeah.
our problems and whisk us away to Dubai. Or maybe a long weekend in the desert or an ayahuasca retreat will fix our depression and anxiety and bring us to a reality that we desire but don't have a grasp on. All of this spiritual stuff is good and great. I know I personally love to partake in some woo-woo stuff, and I have my own spiritual beliefs and practices. I totally am behind the benefits of meditation. That seems to
hmm
be scientifically proven more than anything. But unfortunately, when it gets too far, it can get really dark. So
hmm
there are kind of two sides of the spectrum that I want to talk about when it comes to spiritual psychosis. There's the actual extreme psychosis that is actually a real diagnosis, and then there's the other side, which is more of a casual obsession that can still be very unhealthy and cause distress, but not actual psychosis. And maybe somewhere in the middle, delusion is somewhere in there. So, major disclaimer here. Spiritual psychosis is not an actual diagnosis in the DSM 5. Psychosis is, as well as schizophrenia, which I will
hmm
define in a moment. But I wanted to make that clear because this is more of a colloquial term that's been going around on TikTok. That's where I've been seeing it mostly. And it's something that people have kind of created and have assigned onto other people or even onto themselves as a way to kind of try and understand what people are going through. I think it's important to define some of these terms so we really understand what they mean, because sometimes I think people will use the phrase spiritual psychosis to describe someone who's manic or delusional or is in like literal psychosis. And the thing with psychosis is that it does have spiritual elements, but it just because it has spiritual elements, it doesn't mean it's like the specific spiritual psychosis diagnosis, because that doesn't actually exist. But I'm still going to be using the phrase because I'm analyzing the use of the phrase and what I interpret it, what I think it means based off of the discussion I've been seeing online. Hope that made sense. So, that being said, the definition of psychosis. Psychosis refers to a collection of symptoms that affects the mind where there has been some loss of contact with reality. During an episode of psychosis, a person's thoughts and perceptions are disrupted and they may have difficulty recognizing what is real and what is not. And so when we think psychosis, we think psychotic, Schizophrenia is the primary disorder that comes to mind when we discuss psychotic disorders, though there are a number of other disorders that share one or more features with schizophrenia. And I will be showing a chart here. There's like schizoaffective disorder, delusional disorder, brief psychotic disorder. And so again, I think people are turning this spiritual psychosis phrase into an umbrella term for some of these schizophrenic disorders on the schizophrenic spectrum. Now that we have an understanding on that end, what is spirituality? Spirituality is kind of hard to define. It feels more like a concept that you feel or embody rather than something you can like verbalize in a concrete way, but I have a wordy definition for you, so bear with me, but I think it explains or captures the idea of spirituality well. Spirituality is a distinctive, potentially creative, and universal dimension of human experience arising both within the inner subjective awareness of individuals and within communities, social groups, and traditions. It may be experienced as the relationship with that which is intimately inner, immanent, and personal within the self and others, and/or as the relationship with that which is wholly other, transcendent, and beyond the self. It is experienced as being a fundamental or ultimate importance and is thus concerned with matters of meaning and purpose in life, truth, and values. So if you Google spiritual psychosis, what will come up is something along the lines of a state of mental distress that emerges as a result of experiences that are typically associated with spiritual growth and development. These experiences may involve altered states of consciousness, visions, voices, or other psychic phenomena. So something that came up a lot in my research on this topic is that when we speak of psychosis versus just a spiritual experience, the main difference, because it's kind of hard to actually define, if you're having a spiritual experience and it brings you joy or brings you enlightenment, sounds like, just a regular spiritual experience. But if you're having a spiritual experience and it causes you mental distress, especially over time, that is more spiritual psychosis, right? Because I would imagine most people don't go to church or end a meditation or see or experience a sign from God and have distress afterwards, right? It's like that kind of, I feel like, is the opposite of what like spirituality is meant to do. So when I mentioned the spectrum of actual psychosis versus like unhealthy obsession, a good example of the extreme end of this spectrum, the actual psychosis, is Danielle Johnson, also known as Mystic Lipstick, who was a astrology influencer. She unfortunately passed away. She believed that the April eclipse that happened last month was spiritual warfare and was like the beginning of the apocalypse, and she had a bunch of really alarming tweets that were really like fear-mongering. I don't know how to say this without getting like flagged by YouTube. It makes it sound so unserious, but like she unalived her boyfriend and her two children. One was 8 months old and the other was 9 years old, and then she passed away afterwards. Some content creators who had a relationship with her have come forward and talked about their experience with her, and one of those people was actually Trey Melvin, who was a very popular YouTuber. His story was really, really intense, but unfortunately, I mean, it lines up with everything that happened towards the end of her life. Some people are like, oh, spiritual psychosis. Other people are like, oh, this is postpartum psychosis because she just had a baby. But either way, she was definitely mentally unwell and was having some sort of psychotic break or mania or delusions, all of the above. Again, not a psychologist, okay? This is all conjecture, but like based off of what I know, I feel like it's somewhat safe to say that may be true. And I don't believe that her being an astrologer or being a spiritualist and, selling weekly aura cleanses on Twitter is what led her to the psychosis. I think she may have already had some mental issues before she got into spirituality, or maybe her mental state just amplified her spiritual beliefs in a way that was unhealthy and influenced her in ways that were very negative. I feel like I've been hearing more and more about people who are like her or are on some spectrum of this spiritual psychosis or obsession. So Baby Storm, who is a popular TikToker and musician, has also been getting labeled with this spiritual psychosis thing.
Donald Trump is going to be this year before the upcoming 2024 election. All of the rich will die and only the poor will survive. If you are poor and you are watching this, just hold on a little bit longer. I'm going to set you free very soon. You will need to flee the United States and go to any other country. But there's only one country that you cannot go to. Those who are meant to hear this message will understand immediately. My husband and I will single-handedly fund any and every poor person that wants to leave the United States. But again, that is only if you are willing to sacrifice all material possessions. Hey guys, so I know a lot of you guys have questions after I posted that one video on Saturday night, and I'm here to answer all your questions. But I actually was in the hospital these past few days. As many of you guys know, a lot of you guys may know my friend, well, my old friend, this girl, her name is Marley, aka the Glam Goth. After I posted that video on Monday morning, she showed up to my house and she convinced my mother to have me admitted into a psych ward against my will. I was there for 5 days. While I was there, I was drugged against my will as well. Marley, she was there in the hospital. She visited me the first night that I was staying in the hospital. She tricked me. She tricked me into going into the psych ward, and basically tricked me and tricked my family into lying to me to convince me so I can be, you know, held in a mental institution against my will. The reason why I posted that video the other day is because I think that I'm psychic. It runs on my dad's side of the family. I posted this on my Twitter, and some people were saying, "Oh girl, you don't sound okay because you're saying that you think you're psychic." I'm sorry, do you guys not believe in psychics? Like, I thought it was common knowledge that psychics exist, because I wanted to warn you guys about what I think is going to happen if certain things don't change in the United States.
Yeah, it's really concerning to me to see these people online kind of lose grasp of reality. I mean, we even saw this with Gabby Hanna a couple years ago, and thankfully she's seen the other side of it and she's gotten better. But I don't know if it's the state of the world. It seems like it, especially with Baby Storm, because she was talking about the election and stuff, and social media, and the way that these algorithms just can like sink their claws into your psyche and make you believe all these crazy things. Maybe it's because we are in the age of social media, so people who are manic or in psychosis can just grab their phone and spew all this nonsense and then click post and it reaches millions of people. So it seems like it's happening more often, but maybe it's always been this way and people have always been affected by mania and psychosis at the same rates. We just didn't know about it. But I do wonder if this is something that is happening to people more often because of the state of the world and how turbulent things are. Maybe I'm wrong. All that being said, though, with Baby Storm or Gabby Hanna, it does appear that whatever spiritual experiences that they thought they were having was bringing them a lot of suffering. Now, again, I'm not here to diagnose anybody because I do not have the credentials and I've never met these people in real life, but where these people fit into this phrase of spiritual psychosis or psychosis is the negative effects that it is having on their mental health. I said before, the difference between a spiritual psychosis or psychotic episode versus a spiritual experience is the dread, the terror, and the negative feelings associated with it. Typically, a spiritual experience is met with joy and peace and serenity, but with psychosis, there are serious negative effects on the individual's life and mental health. Now, some more information from the professionals. Since the ascendance of psychodynamic theories a century ago, skeptical psychologists have interpreted spiritual experience as a neurotic defense against life's vicissitudes. What seems to be important is the way in which the psychotic phenomena are embedded in the values and beliefs of the person. It is not what you believe, but how you believe it. Distress and unwanted preoccupations characterize psychosis, whereas spiritual experiences may be sought after and are often associated with positive life changes. Many psychiatrists and psychologists have followed Freud in interpreting spiritually transformative experiences as neurotic defenses against stress and the fear of death, which again brings me to believe that due to the, I would say, mass distress that we're all experiencing, it's causing people to fall into these rabbit holes and be more prone to psychotic episodes or mania. I don't know if like the average person who doesn't experience mental health issues already is just gonna like be thrown into psychosis because of a turbulent election year, but I think if you're already prone to mental illness, it's more likely to happen to you considering the circumstances of the world. The fact that an experience may gratify unconscious psychological desires or defend against psychological fears does not mean that the experience is nothing but a neurotic defense. In other words, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Objects that can serve as symbols are not always just symbolic. Sometimes what seems like a spiritual experience is just a spiritual experience. Lastly, before we move on to the next section of this video, I wanted to also touch on the fact that when one has experienced psychosis and they are recovering from that state of being, there's usually a depression met with their recovery, because everything that they believed to be true about the universe, about the world, about themselves, is being stripped away from them, and they're being told that's not true, that's not real. And that's a very jarring experience to go through. So even in recovery, there are other negative side effects that come with that, because I mean, imagine you as a regular person, you perceive reality to be what it is. You're like, yes, this is real, this is true. Imagine someone being like, oh, actually everything that you're saying, thinking, feeling is not real. It's not in touch with reality. That's like really hard to grasp. And I think with some
Hmm.
of these people who experience psychosis, they want to hold on to that reality. They want to be validated on what they believe reality to be.
But usually those people are doing those things for the wrong reasons, and that's why they end up in a situation like that. If you're simply seeking out religion or spirituality just to feel better, it may not work out for you in the way that you think it will. Like if you have genuine intent, then everything will align, everything will work out. Your eyes will be open to certain things, your ears will be open to certain things, like you'll start to grow because you're grounded, you're properly rooted. But if you're only going there, and I don't even care if you're like even trying to go to the dark side, the guy downstairs, even when you're trying to work with that, a lot of people fail to realize one, that always comes at a cost. Two, he's always going to come back to collect. But all of that stuff is temporary because you're doing it for instant gratification when nothing in the spiritual world works like that. Nothing. Not a single thing, good or bad. It just doesn't work like that. And it's sad that these people are in these situations, I feel for them. I hope that they find something that is genuine and come into it genuinely so that they have a better and different experience. Ebb and flow, ebb and flow.
And I can imagine that's really hard to grasp. And so, again, that's
Yeah.
really the difference between psychosis and a spiritual experience. And something that's always been scary to me about spirituality, because I remember when I got into spirituality when I was younger, and I would always see people say, like, oh, you're having a spiritual awakening when everyone thinks you're crazy. And it's like, oh, people are going to think you're crazy. Like, that's how you know that you're becoming more aligned or you're becoming one with the universe, because people think that
That depends. That depends. But maybe I'll make a video on my other channel about that. But that depends. That depends. And some people take that and run with it. And then that doesn't apply to them. Because it's like, no, you kind of made that fit. But there's a reason as to why they would say that. But I feel like nowadays that doesn't ring as true or isn't as valid with people forcing it, if you get what I'm saying.
you are insane because you've broken out of the matrix. And that rhetoric is really popular within spiritual communities,
Yeah.
and I think that just kind of digs people in deeper. I am, again, all for spirituality and doing whatever it is that you need to do to like get through life, but skepticism, I think, should still be considered and should be promoted even by spiritual gurus. Like, use your own judgment. Don't
Yes.
let people tell you what
Discernment.
you should believe. You can listen with open ears and consider and be like, oh, does that resonate or does that not resonate? And if it doesn't, that
Exactly.
doesn't mean that you're stuck in the matrix or that you're dumb or that you aren't spiritual enough. I think it's really important for anyone's spiritual growth and journeys to really like tap into themselves and see what rings true to them. Because spirituality is such a personal experience and journey. Please remain skeptical, be open minded, but
Hmm.
don't fall for everything. Don't listen to just anybody, whether it's a friend, a family member, or someone on the internet trying to tell you like what you should believe. Something that I really don't like about the new age spirituality culture online is the way that people use it to posture themselves and to kind of have this self-righteousness because,
Mm.
oh, well, I'm more aligned, I meditate more, I'm this, that, and the
Mm.
third. And that's why, I mean, that's how cults happen, especially when
It's the same thing with religion, though. I feel like whenever people allow their egos to get in the way of it, no matter what it is, that's when it takes a turn for the worse. Because, yeah, you may meditate more than that person. Shoot, you might even pray more than that person. But that doesn't make you better than that person. And that doesn't mean that person has to worship the same way you worship. That doesn't mean that person has to have the same exact belief systems just as you. all of us are different. I'm a person that honestly believes we all, if you do believe in God, of course, people have different beliefs, or no matter what you believe in, that we all have our own special relationship with that said being. For me, it's God or deity. So I don't think it's a one size fits all. Now, there may be a common interest or people who share common ways of worshiping. Yeah, so those are people who naturally fit. But for you to dictate and determine that a person may do it this one way is absurd. It doesn't work that way. I honestly don't believe that. And you could disagree, that's fine. God gave us all free will. And like, what would the world be if we didn't have people questioning things or people with different opinions, differing beliefs, differing ideas? Everyone's different. It's not a one size fits all.
They're preaching to people who need it. Like, chances are, if you're seeking spiritual guidance, there's something maybe in your life that needs some compassion. There's a void in your life that you may be wanting to fill, or there's something about your life you want to understand, and you're more vulnerable. You're more vulnerable, and these people know that.
When I was 19 and 20 years old, I went through a spiritual psychosis. But looking back, I can see the symptoms that were like starting to show, but I didn't understand it, and I was like defining it as becoming enlightened. Things like I just had severe paranoia, or I felt like I could see through people, and like God was talking to me, telling me like people's intentions, and that people entering my life or my ex's life at the time were like evil spirits, and they were like sent out to teach me lessons, and like nobody could be trusted, and I can only trust the angels, and I was like constantly looking for like number signs in the universe. But then the like big psychosis happened when my first love, and we split up, and it was like one day to the other. And I cannot explain it. It was like the Big Bang. Oh, it's also important to probably mention that it was a substance-induced psychosis. And all of a sudden, nothing made sense. And I was questioning reality. I was questioning spirituality. I was questioning everything. Like, nothing made sense. I was so confused. So I was very vulnerable and I was very desperate. And I really, really leaned on spirituality and used different spiritual practices as like an explanation and a way to like define my reality and like carve out a path that like was socially acceptable and could like give explanation to these really crazy symptoms and experiences that I was having. I believed that I was like becoming too enlightened for this world, and the government was like catching on to me because I had access to like different dimensions and I had access to knowledge that I wasn't supposed to have.
But yeah, I don't like some will call spiritual narcissism, where people will try to use spirituality as a way to put them in a position of authority. There's a phrase called spiritual bypassing, which is a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. The term was introduced in the mid-1980s by John Wellwood, a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist. Clinicians in pastoral psychology have identified both beneficial and detrimental manifestations of behavior that could be described as spiritual bypass. Oh, your dad died? Well, try meditating. He's just in a better place. He's moved on. His spirit is on to the next journey, the next life. And you shouldn't be sad, because that's just a part of the human.
Imagine if somebody said that to you. Honestly, I don't know what I would do. But I guess it depends on my mood, the type of day I'm having. I don't know if I would use a select few choice words. I don't know. But please don't tell people stuff like that. Obviously, she's not saying that, but I'm sure that there are people like that. Like, imagine, oh, but there are people like that. You know how like someone will die and they'll be like, he's in a better place. Although, yes, right. But like, do you think that was the right choice of words for the moment? I mean, I get you're trying to help, and sometimes it's hard. Like, what do you say in moments like that? It is hard, especially if you didn't experience what they're experiencing. It's 10 times harder than. But yeah, people do that. Wow.
Spiritual soul experience. Even in the definition of spiritual bypassing, it says it's avoiding psychological wounds, even physical wounds. I've seen people literally say that they healed their kidney with their mind.
Transforms DNA, my mind's making things move. Whoa. Kidney infection, I healed that too.
Now, she seems like a nice lady, but I do draw the line at like changing your.
Did Kevin Gates start the car with his bare hands? She healed her lungs. We got some real life magicians in this world, y'all.
DNA with the power of your mind. I do think that is cuckoo bananas and not something that we should be promoting online for people to also think and to, play devil's advocate, whatever. I do believe in the power of the mind. Like, it's
Of
amazing what
course.
the mind can do. And I've heard these crazy stories about people.
The mind is very powerful. That I can definitely attest for. I have a video coming out on my other YouTube channel, Spiritually Spy, where I talk about how depression made me physically sick. And at the time, I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, I knew I was depressed, but my body literally did shut down on me. The mind is very powerful, very, very, very powerful. It's important to take care of your mind. Although I was young too, I was like 17, but I had been depressed for a while at that point. And I started to get like this really bad headache. Like I've never had a headache that bad. And I suffered from migraines, but that headache was like really bad. Even tried to go to sleep, could not go to sleep, slept in a dark room, did all the remedies that people would do, took a Tylenol, everything, nothing would work. Then I had to go to the hospital. Then eventually I got admitted. It's a long story for another day, but tap into the channel to hear all about it. But yeah, that can be true. But as far as like healing your kidney, just thinking, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know. Just thinking. That's all you did. All you did was just think it. That's it. That's all you did. I don't know.
Like healing broken bones by, the
Right.
power of thought. And I'm not here to discredit those experiences, but I do think ignoring medical attention for serious illnesses, injuries,
It's
diseases,
crazy. Don't do
etc., and
that.
promoting that online can have negative consequences. I
Hmm.
feel like people like Shannon Blake probably just like did too much ayahuasca and like think they're God. I don't know if that's where it all started, but that is a big part of this whole new age spirituality thing is like white people going to Peru and like taking ayahuasca 3 times in a week to like try to fix themselves or find enlightenment or whatever. I don't knock ayahuasca whatsoever. I know that is like an ancient medicine that has been used for years by so many people, but unfortunately Westerners take
Yeah,
stuff like that and kind of
run
ruin
with it.
it because they ruin it for themselves and they take too
Hmm.
much of it in too short of a time, and then they like lose.
Same thing with marijuana. People use and abuse things. A lot of these things were used for medicinal purposes or spiritual purposes, but they were taken in a lot smaller doses and not as frequently. So it was effective for what they were using it for. Now, a lot of people, they do use and abuse things. They're not using it with the same intent. Same thing with like spirituality and religion. I hope it's clocking. I hope I'm making sense. But I know what I'm saying. But I hope it's being translated correctly. But there I go with my overthinking. Let's get back to the video.
Brain cells or go into actual psychosis and never return. I have stories about that. Maybe I'll tell that story on the Patreon. I could tell so many stories about my spiritual experiences, both with and without certain molecules. Don't do drugs, kids. And if you do, be mindful. Don't overindulge because there are
Don't.
consequences. If you really
Yes.
want to get in touch with your spirituality, go into the woods, go into the ocean. Like, you don't have to do the drug. You don't have to do the ayahuasca. You don't have to do the DMT to open your third eye. And again, I'm not knocking it. Maybe one day I will have my ayahuasca journey, but I think the issue is the normalization of doing DMT or ayahuasca or any sort of
Yeah.
mind-altering psychedelic substance without being responsible about it, because people think just because it's like a spiritual thing that gives them the pass to just like overindulge and go head first in it without researching or really knowing what they're getting into and knowing the risks of it. And then promoting it online to other people is also very irresponsible without being clear of its effects and what happens before, during, after, etc. I know ayahuasca or DMT has helped a lot of people, and I definitely, again, do not knock it, but again, just be responsible, please. People like her I always found fascinating, and I'm not singling her out. Like, again, she seems like a nice girl. I don't know her. I don't mean to like dogpile on her, but the archetype that she represents of like the spiritually enlightened enlightened white girl who's probably from California and lives in a van and probably has rich parents, let's be honest. Speaking of rich white women, go check out my Patreon episode about the Brandy Melville documentary. Join my Patreon, madisonbrown.com/madisonbrown if you'd like to support this channel. Thanks! I find them interesting because typically they are always adorned in the crystals and the jewels and the tattoos and the locks, and it's a lot, and it's a very maximalist aesthetic, I've noticed. I always thought that was interesting because I thought the point of spirituality is, or at least a part of spirituality, is the ability to separate oneself from worldly possessions and material desires and things like that. And like all the stuff that is in the van and on the body costs money, and it's like a lot of stuff. I feel like sometimes with New Age spirituality, there's this unspoken standard when it comes to the aesthetic. Like, if you want to be considered spiritual, you gotta look it. You gotta play the part. You gotta wear the rings and have the right hairstyle and the harem pants and the Birkenstocks. You know what I'm saying? Truly, to be spiritual, all you need is your mind, your soul, your body. It's kind of why monks are like bald and like wear the same thing every day. So I always thought that was interesting how like you have to kind of adhere to this certain look or aesthetic to be a spiritualist online. Mind you, I love the earthy aesthetic. I love the boho look. I feel like my personal style fits into that as well. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just making an observation about the sometimes like maximalist element to the spiritual aesthetic, if you will. Dress however you want. It's all self-expression. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't wear, but I thought that was interesting, especially because with the adornments, the accessories and whatnot does border on cultural appropriation or just full-on cultural appropriation, which I think is interesting. And that kind of brings me to the final section of this video, which is mostly me just kind of chatting about the spiritual culture that I see on the internet and what maybe I would consider the other side of the spectrum, which is the unhealthy obsession, little bit of delusion, but not full-on psychosis. Just an unhealthy obsession that should be examined, which I think is what a lot of people online are talking about, because I've seen a lot of girls be like, oh, I was in spiritual psychosis in 2019, like I was paying a tarot card reader like $200 a week to tell me about my ex, or I saw one girl who was like, I paid 10 different Etsy artists to draw my soulmate. Have you ever seen those where it's like, oh, you can pay me $10 and I'll draw your soulmate? And of course, all the pictures that she got looked completely different. I feel like TikTok has really just made people lose their minds. Even more so with like, the algorithm knows what you're going to engage with, right? So if you watch a tarot reading, it's just going to send you a bunch more tarot readings. And if you're already in this vulnerable state of looking for answers, and maybe you went through a breakup and you're looking for some sort of hope to grasp onto, these tarot readers, they know what they're doing. They will send you these messages to prey on you so that you buy their courses, so that you engage with their content and they get more followers and more money. And it's really sad because it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole. Like, girl, he's not coming back. Just put down the cards, delete TikTok. He isn't coming back. And that's okay. Move on. If he was really your soulmate, don't you think he would want to be with you? Isn't that kind of how that works? Like, a man who loves you wants to be with you. A man who you're meant to be with, you will be with. And no amount of spells. Oh my God, enough of the spells. Yeah. Please, for the love of God, do not waste your hard-earned money on some Etsy Wiccan to cast a love spell on a man who doesn't give a f. You can't buy your way to love. I thought we knew this.
And that backfires horribly. Horribly, horribly. These things are real, like tarot readers, spells, things like that. But 9 times out of 10, the people who are posting like rinse and repeat content, saying the same things, or it's always like a love reading, or it's always about, oh, this and that, and it's yeah, no, 9 times out of 10, they're not real. But yeah, don't do love spells. That is horrible, and it will backfire on you immensely. I mean, there's stories about people who end up, well, the person that they ended up putting the love spell on ends up freaking losing their mind, unaliving the person who put the spell on them, and not for the sake of them knowing that they put the spell on them, but because the spell worked, and now this person is obsessed with them. And now the person doesn't want to deal with it anymore. But they messed around and found out. Yeah, don't do that. I
But
would
yeah,
advise, but hey, do what you want. It's your life. I'm not telling you what to do right now, but I would recommend that you don't do that.
there's a lot of scammers on TikTok, a lot of like fake tarot readers
Yeah,
and astrologists even probably scamming you. And when you're
but there
not
are
in a
real ones.
state of like vulnerability and
So I think
obsession and limerence, it's so easy to see how fake and BS these tarot readers are. Like you'll be scrolling and it's like a woman with a card up and she's like, King of Chariots, Wands of Spades.
yes, especially when you don't see them pull these cards and they just automatically have cards there. Yeah, dead giveaway. Like, oh, I wonder how you put this together.
He's been thinking about you all week. He hasn't reached out because he's scared, but you should expect a text message at 2:23 on
What?
May
If you like and share and send it to the first person that comes up.
31st. Like, it's like, what the fuck? If you see birds in the sky, that means
Yeah.
he's thinking about you. And why is it always about why is it always about a man? Riddle me that. Why is it always about a man? It's never, oh, that friend of yours who you haven't talked to since first grade is thinking about you, or make sure to do your taxes. It's always like, expect someone from your past to return. And it's like, what? Who? What are you talking about?
But that's all I pretty much wanted to watch. Shout out to her. Shout out to Madison. This was a really good video. Let's leave her a like. And I hope you guys enjoyed my first reaction. And I'll catch you guys on the flip. Ciao.